Alrighty. Let's talk chapter 5. This chapter broke me. I'm just gonna say that first of all, it absolutely broke me. Yeah. I think that's the very first thing I wanna say and start off with. And I knew this was going to happen, but I was kind of hoping for it to happen in the arena and not even before we get to the arena. But I am sidetracking. Let's start from the beginning of this wonderful chapter and how much it broke my heart. Let's go. Okay, the very first thing that I wanted to talk about was, I think I did not really complete the entirety of chapter 4. I think there was about 9ish minutes left. And so the at the end of chapter 4 and the starting of chapter 5, what we learn is Wyatt is not a Booker boy. He is someone who works in the odds, and I wonder if the odds are going to be in his favor, which I know they are not going to be. So I'm prepared for another death really quickly. But also, wow. Okay, no, this chapter broke me. Okay, I'm gonna focus. Yes. Okay, I'm gonna do this. This chapter was really good and telling us about how much the tributes are still being treated as animals. We see, once again, in Lucy Gray's story, we see how they are essentially dropped off into that zoo kind of an enclosure. Once again, I've seen the movies, I've not read the book yet, but we see them being dropped off in that enclosure and everyone kind of watching and looking at them and being like, oh, look at the tributes, haha. And how much it still hasn't changed, because we see all these characters getting out of the train and being handcuffed. The carriers of District 1 and 2, we kind of know that they're kind of in the favor of the capital because they're so close to it and earn benefits. They're also being treated as animals because they have those chains kind of interlocking all the tributes together. And we see how much it is, yeah, it's such an animalistic way of viewing the tributes, and we see that throughout this chapter. I would say I wanted to give special mention to Wyatt and Maisie, who were probably not able to sleep after being reaved and could essentially hear Hamish and Luella being like, we don't, we are going to be allies, we're going to be together, ha ha ha, ha ha. And I don't want Wyatt in the team. And Wyatt is like, you will 100% need me on your team, kind of a thingy, because he is, once again, someone who plays with the odds. So he has an idea about what the arena and the world is going to look like once they get into the arena. So that kind of broke my heart, because if I was a tribute and someone from my own team is like, I don't want them on the very night that I was reaped, and I'm trying to fall asleep, not able to sleep because I know what awaits me at the end of this whole journey. And I hear people gossiping silently, like, hey, I don't want them. It would break my heart. I would literally end up crying into my sheets, honest to God. And still, after a point of time, just being like, you don't want me, I don't want you. Once again, I'm a kid at heart sometimes, especially in scenarios like these. So yeah, them hearing that, not really eavesdropping, but being awake, and Luella being like, you were eavesdropping on us, you're a Booker boy and an eavesdropper. I would be like, no, girl, you guys just talk loud without realizing how loud you talk. And I was awake, so not really eavesdropping. If you wanted it to be a private conversation, you could have done it somewhere else. I am sidetracking so much because I do not want to get to the end of this chapter, but let's keep going. Them being chained off and taken into that old washed up, like, it's not even a tribute center like we see it in Katniss's era. It's literally just a breaking apart gymnasium. I'm thinking President Snow hasn't kind of figured out how to make this into an entertainment thing, and it is still leaning a bit more towards, we are doing this for the sake of revenge, we are doing this to remind us of all the battles we and our forefathers have fought, and all of that jazz. And we kind of see that with the capital flags and posters. That's kind of like, our peace, Hunger Games are important. Like, the government is actively trying to remind people that this is crucial, this is important, and we need to have this for the stability and peace that we have at the capital, which tells me that it's not as favorable as it once was perceived to be, and as it is going to perceived to be as in the future. So it's very interesting how we go from here, how stable the government and the necessity of the Hunger Games is in the current situation inside the capital is going to be really interesting to see. Them being taken to those locker rooms and essentially asked to strip, have that hot water just thrown at them, soap and insecticides and all of that jazz that was like, once again sprayed at them before hot water was once again sprayed and there was hot air blown at them to kind of like get rid of any pests and bugs. Just seeing that was like, oh, they're going, because that was until they were carted away in handcuffs. I was like, okay, kind of prisonery behavior, but hopefully things will get better. But they didn't, because once again they were treated like animals, right? Just shoved into enclosures, given a bath. They don't even care how they feel in that space. It's just and then kind of getting out of there and being given a paper towel to kind of wrap themselves up in, which was very weird. I was like, ew, give them clothes. Then them being taken into those tiny cubicles that are curtained off, and for them to be like, cleaned up, for them to be the projects for university students, for their before and after shots that we see with Porcupine and Vasca, and yet to sing the two people on the styling team that I don't remember their names. I'm so sorry. But yes, I don't remember your name. And them kind of gossiping about live reptiles and being very flippant about the whole thing. They're like, we've told our, was Porcupina? She was like, I've told my grandmother and she told me that she's going to sponsor you so that I get better marks in my university project. So once again, they are seen as projects, they're seen as cute animals that you bring along on a joyride and show off to the people, like, look how much I converted them, look at the makeover that I gave them. And they're not treated as human beings, right? They're treated as pests, and it's really annoying as we kind of keep progressing and keep seeing how bad it gets. They're all waiting in that big space for their designer to come in and give them clothes. I don't remember the designer's name, but I hate him. Oh my gosh, what was the designer's name? Stylist's name. Oh, stylist of. You'll see this as we keep going. I absolutely do not remember names of people. I was kind of hoping for Effie to be the stylist, but I think it's going to happen much later. Magno Stiff. Oh my god, this dude, he was so annoying with his stupid gator snake earrings. I did not like him. And then he comes late. First of all, they didn't know if he was arriving, and Luella is like, are we going to go out and like these paper towers basically covering us because it's not the best view? And then Drusilla being like, holy shit, no, that's real. We need to get these people something to wear. And like she's asking the stylist to be like, give us your clothes and things. And they're kind of trying to get in, and how their hopes are kind of crushed from being told that Magno would have newer costumes and better, shinier costumes to him not arriving. And then when he does arrive, he gives back those same clothes that have probably been worn by other tributes in the past, haven't been washed because of how stinky they smell. As a, according to Hamish, how stinky it all smells when he's wearing those clothes and wearing the hat. And he's like, what better than the towel that we would potentially be sent out in, where people could see my butt hanging out. And Drusilla's like, you told us that you were getting us better clothes. What is this? And being like, oh, you know what? And he clicks the bulb on top of Maisley's hat, and it like flickers with the barest of light. And he's like, I changed the batteries. And I was like, I'm gonna change your face. I feel like I'm gonna punch literally every single one of these capital members. No one has escaped my wrath yet. They are really, really annoying. Except for Porcupine and Vastas. His name I do not remember. I am so sorry. I am bad with names. But probably they have kind of like not a soft spot in my heart, but they're just like people I did not immediately get pissed off with Vastas. I'm gonna call him Vastas until I figure out his name or until his name comes again. Because I am not going to click and search Google search stuff. I have been getting unnecessarily spoiled as I edited the previous videos. I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna call him V. Let's call him V because I remember his name had a V. V and P. Let's go. We had his mom's Hunger Games themed party, and yeah, they're still very naive, I would say. At the end of the day, like, there are no consequences. They do not have or feel any of the consequences. They'll probably cry for half a day if Hamish or anyone from his team dies. But yeah, I don't think they're going to face bigger consequences than that or feel anything bigger than that. So I haven't brushed them off, still kind of naive. I'm okay with them. But everyone else in the capital, I'm gonna catch my hands. But anyways, Magno comes, gives them the clothes, and they are like, okay, fine, whatever. They just wear it, and then they go outside. They are taken to the stables, and honestly, I kind of forgot that the chariot thingy was happening, and I thought they were going to be shown off in the stables themselves, but thankfully they weren't. But also the photographer who was going to take photo shoots, literally they were all chained up and chained together, and their photos were taken right inside the van. Once again, it's not as dramatized as it is in Katniss's time. It is still very much a growing thing in terms of how the Hunger Games is viewed by the capital members, how the tributes are viewed. They are not viewed as reality show kind of a space. They are still kind of getting up to that space. Anyways, we see them being pushed onto the horses who are obviously not trained, and I'm guessing that they weren't really trained or cared for because they were supposed to be District 12's horses, and no one really cares about District 12. Big mistake. AO. Hashtag Katniss Everdeen and Hamish Abernathy and everyone who came before them. But yes, they are pushed into the chariot. Luella is obviously overwhelmed and she sits down, and Drizella, who was, doing the bare minimum and at least looking out for Magno and being like, they need to wear clothes. And yeah, she was doing her bare minimum, but then she's like, stand up, girl, what are you doing? And I was like, this lady is going to fight. I'm going to find her and I'm going to beat her up. But anyways, Luella gets up and Hamish says this really beautiful thingy. He tells her, you were raised better, you were loved better, you are so much better than all of these people. And there was there were a few foreshadowing hints about what's going to happen next, like the horses being very jittery and angsty kind of a thingy, and Luella being like, "Well, we're going to our deaths," and even Magno was like, I don't really care even if I get sagged. I don't really care. They're barely going to live for a few hours after this. So there were a lot of foreshadowing clues, I would say, looking back, which hurts me. But I was kind of happy that Luella gets to hear Hamish say something really beautiful to her before uh, she dies. I absolutely hated the Capital members who were like, jeering at them, drunk and smelled like puke. And Hamish also kind of says that these people kind of smell very similar to the pub spaces essentially, and how people smell back home when they're drunk of their butts. And they were poking at Maisie with their canes. One person literally face planted because he was trying to poke her too hard. Weirdo. And then someone sets off a firecracker that sets off the horses, and then their chariot starts to, you know I'm sorry, this chapter broke my heart. Like, honestly, I am trying to do this, but I was also like, ugh. But yes, their chariot veers, of course, almost clashes into District 11's chariot, then almost crashes into District 6's chariot, and it does crash. The chariot kind of tilts, and Hamish pulls Luella, and as they're falling onto the spiked wheels kind of a thingy. And it broke my heart when Hamish falls and he feels blood pooling near his arm, and he's like, oh, thank heavens. It's a swift death. At least I am not dying inside the arena with the weasels and the peacemakers essentially torturing us. At least that is not happening. And then he's like, no, the person who actually got the swift death was not me, but was Luella. This chapter broke me, guys. It did. I don't know how I'm going to deal with the rest of this book. I also read The Hunger Games when I was really young. So while it did affect me, it did not affect me as much as reading this book is affecting me, especially the current political climate and how much even the AI climate, like nothing is real at this point in time. I feel everything has some form of AI attached to it. Everything has some form of fakeness attached to it, and it just hurts my heart. And this particular chapter destroyed me. I also want to give out a special mention to Lenora and Hamish's relationship. I love how strong their love is, because Hamish, while they were waiting for, you know, their stylist and all that, or while they were waiting for, I think while he was waiting for BNP, he was thinking about how if it was Lenora who was actually pulled into the games, Hamish would have done absolutely anything he could to get to her, help her at least die a swift death if he snuck into the train and help her die a swift death if that is what was important. Which is where we see where his mind is at. Like, he's like, a swift death is better than all the craziness that we will have to deal with inside the arena and potentially afterwards. He's not thinking of afterwards, but at least inside the arena, he knows that he's going to be tortured. So he thinks that, but then he's like, the only thing holding me back would be my and Sid. And then I know they're going to have a very grim ending. I swear to God, I'm prepared for it. They're going to have a very grim ending. I know that for a fact. But him being like, he wouldn't have done it. He would have actually just gone back. And he's worried about what Lenora is doing. And then we get a bit more of Lenora's backstory as to how she was someone who was always rebelling, right? Like, she's been to jail twice. Once because she filed the rope when someone was supposed to be hanged. Clay was supposed to be hanged. She filed the rope so that when he was hung, that rope broke down and he fell down. But then he ended up dying nonetheless. And how Clay's sister, who had like an year to live, essentially took on that blame. And then she was mysteriously killed off as well. And then we see how Lenora also, on their very first reaping, hers and Hamish's very first reaping, she puts a burning flag with kerosene, and then there's a candle that was lit at the end of a corridor, so that when the candle burned down, the flame would get to the flag and the flag would burn. And how Hamish was like, thankfully they didn't figure out who it was, and it happened before the reaping event could start, so it wasn't on cameras, because if it would have been on camera, it would have been a worse fate for Lenora. But Lenora was once again caught because she was a suspect who had tried to fight back or tried to repel in the past. So the peacekeepers were like, I have my eye on you kind of a thingy. And how Lenora, after those two incidents, she was like, you know, Hamish always asks her, like, did you do that? And she's like, see, if it was, you should be able to plausibly deny that fact in court. But if it wasn't, why do you care? It's okay. Nothing came out of it anyways. Clay did end up dying, and the flag was removed before it could even go online onto the stream and shown around the world, around the capital. And so, how those few moments of rebelling were quelled down and there was no positive outcome out of it. I think that is going to be a repeating theme in this book about how potentially Haymitch, after winning the games, is also going to be someone who's going to keep trying to rebel because that's his character, right? Like he is actively rebelling, and I feel like after his mom and Sid dies, and I know they're going to have a grim ending, but whenever they have that grim ending, nothing is going to be holding him back anymore, and he is going to be actively planning things for the rebellion. He is going to be an active part of the rebellion, and I can't wait to see how that unfolds. But it's all going to be sad, and we are kind of going to see how, irrespective of how much they rebel, nothing is potentially going to stick until Katniss's 75th Hunger Games, 74th and 75th Hunger Games. Until that point in time, nothing is actively going to stick, and I think that's going to be both beautiful and sad at the same time. But yes, this chapter broke me. That's me. 20 minutes of me saying this chapter broke me, and I was right. It did. Let me know what your thoughts were. Rest in peace, Luella. You'll have my heart. You beautiful, beautiful sweetheart. I love you. I'm glad you didn't have to face the horrors of the arena. Ay, ay, ay. Okay, I'll see you when I read the next chapter. Until then, bye bye.